Dynasty deep stashes. We're talking about that in today's video. As always, guys, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoy fantasy content and Dynasty content. We're talking about some deep stashes here, some guys that potentially you should stash over the next week or so to get ahead of the game, to get ahead of injuries. What we learned this year, man, is injuries just elevate guys, and anyone can kind of come out of nowhere and be good. Starting off with the quarterback position, only have 3 QBs for you today. Kenny Pickett for your Las Vegas Raiders. He's probably rostered in a lot of leagues, but just in case he's not, I would go out and grab Pickett. He's kind of like one of the few backup quarterbacks that could get a shot without an injury. If Geno just kind of keeps sucking like he has been with the Raiders, I know he's had a couple good games here and there, but overall, I'd say Geno's been a pretty big disappointment. And the Raiders are 2-4. If they keep losing and he keeps sucking, we could see Pickett be put in there as the QB1 for the Raiders. Riley Leonard, he is going to need an injury, but as of right now, Anthony Richardson went on IR. So the Colts have Daniel Jones and Riley Leonard on their active roster each and every week. They're going to have a third quarterback be the emergency starter, that's for sure. And maybe, Riley Leonard will be the emergency starter and someone else will be the QB2. But I would have to imagine, if something were to happen to Daniel Jones, I mean, they have Brett Rippon on their practice squad. I would have to imagine that they're probably going to give Riley Leonard a shot. Let's just hope nothing happens to Daniel Jones because it doesn't look great for them in terms of their backup situation here. Last quarterback, I talk about him a lot, Jarrett Stidham. I feel like he's one, in Superflex leagues and Dynasty, basically every backup quarterback is rostered. There are a few out there that aren't. A guy like Jarrett Stidham is one of them. And if something were to happen to Bo Nix, we've seen Jarrett Stidham for the Broncos go in there and have good passing games. Back in 2023, he played a couple games when Russell Wilson was benched, and he threw he basically averaged about 250 in the last 2 weeks of the season for Denver. We saw him go in for Derek Carr and the Raiders back in 2022. And he basically averaged even more. He averaged 320 and 2. So we've seen him go out and put up decent passing numbers. So he's just the guy that, again, every QB2 is basically rostered in Superflex leagues. Jarrett Stidham is one that I just see kind of widely available in all my Dynasty leagues. Into some running backs here. A.J. Dillon, again, another player because of the name value. He was a thing there for a while. He's probably rostered. But I think when people think Eagles, I think they go to Will Shipley and Tank Bigsby as kind of the backup running backs. But how the Eagles are using and playing it out is it's actually A.J. Dillon. Now, if something were to happen to Barkley, it probably means you get, 2 or 3, all 3 of those guys involved. But in terms of who they're using next up after Barkley, it is A.J. Dillon. So I have to imagine there's a good chance that A.J. Dillon is actually the RB2 for this team. And again, RB2s should 100% be rostered. We see RB2s come in and be awesome, Rico Dowdle, each and every week of fantasy football, each and every year. So just wanted to throw that out there. If he's out there, A.J. Dillon, he's probably the RB2 for the Eagles. Chris Brooks, another guy that could possibly be the RB2 for the Green Bay Packers. Now, and a lot of people are rostering Emmanuel Wilson, but in terms of how the Packers were playing it, at least to start the year, it was Chris Brooks. Last couple of weeks, it makes you think maybe it is Emmanuel Wilson. That being said, if something were to happen to Josh Jacobs, they probably use both these guys. Marshawn Lloyd's still on IR, so it's not him. So this is another situation where Emmanuel Wilson is rostered in basically all my Dynasty leagues, and Chris Brooks is not. And there's a chance if something happens to Jacobs that Chris Brooks is just kind of better, or he's used more in terms of the usage. So just wanted to throw his name out there as well. Terrell Jennings for your New England Patriots. The Patriots, obviously Antonio Gibson out for the year. They have Ramondre Stevenson. They have Travion Henderson. They have a couple guys on their practice squad. So whenever someone goes out for the year, the RB3, we got to start looking at the RB4, RB5 in Dynasty, right? Because these guys are kind of an injury away from becoming relevant. Terrell Jennings is on their practice squad. He was called up last week, I believe, off the practice squad. They also have someone else, Jashawn Corbin. So both these guys, Jennings and Corbin, are younger guys, second, third year type of players. Terrell Jennings was the guy that was called up last week. He didn't really play at all, or like if he played on special teams. So he might just be a special teams type of guy. But he's kind of the RB3 as of right now, at least the guy they're calling up to be the RB3. So keep an eye on Terrell Jennings. Khalil Herbert for your New York Jets. Khalil Herbert signed to the New York Jets. Khalil Herbert, man, there's obviously a disconnect from like what we all see and feel about Khalil Herbert a couple of years ago to what NFL teams really feel about Khalil Herbert. October 2nd, Khalil Herbert was signed by the New York Jets off the Seahawks practice squad. Khalil Herbert, as of right now, is the RB4 on the depth chart for the Jets, but he's on the active roster. They have Breece Hall, obviously Isaiah Davis. They have Kenny in Wagyu. I forget how to say the name. It's Kene Wangu. He's the RB3 on this team. I think he's more kind of like a special teams player. He played about 40% of the special team snaps. If something were to happen to Breece Hall, like an injury or a trade, you could actually see Khalil Herbert, get a little bit of run here. Isaiah Davis, obviously, if he's out there, needs to be rostered, but Khalil Herbert, I think, is pretty widely available. Sion Vaki, I talk about him all the time, former 4th-round pick by the Lions in the 2024 NFL draft for Sione Vaki. And yeah, I just think, like, again, you kind of want every single Lions running back that's on their team, that's on their active roster. And Sione Vake is on their active roster. I think he's more of a special teams guy more than anything, but him and Craig Reynolds should definitely be rostered, in my opinion. Nathan Carter for the Atlanta Falcons. Nathan Carter, undrafted rookie free agent in the 2025 NFL draft. Played at Connecticut and Michigan State. Pretty productive guy. Had 64 catches in college, so he can catch the ball. He's a little bit smaller of a guy. I think he's one of these running backs that's under 200 pounds or something like that. But he can catch the ball, which is intriguing because the Falcons right now, he's their RB3. So Bijan and Algier obviously 1-2. If something were to happen to one of those guys, Nathan Carter, we could be seeing getting a little bit of run. Obviously, they like him enough to trust him to be their RB3. Now, again, is he on the team more because of special teams? Possibly. I mean, he plays not a whole lot of special teams. He plays on average 13% of the special team snaps, and he's not even active every week. So go out and stash Nathan Carter if he's out there. Malik Davis for your Dallas Cowboys on the practice squad for the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are down to 2 running backs right now, currently healthy on their active roster, Javonte Williams and Jaden Blue. And then, there's Hunter Lubke as well, who's more of a fullback, right? So I would reckon if something were to happen to Javonte Williams, I don't think it's all just going to go to Jaden Blue. I don't know if they trust him. I don't know if he's that type of running back. Malik Davis, who's been on the Cowboys for the last couple of years now, on their practice squad, got a little bit of run a few years ago. He could be the guy that they call up and give more of a bulk of the carries. He's maybe more of that type of running back. So he's a guy deeper stash here, but he may be just one Javonte, even though he's on the practice squad, he might be one Javonte Williams injury away from being relevant in fantasy. Xavier Scott, he's another guy that's probably rostered quite a lot. Currently the RB2 for the Minnesota Vikings, in case he's not. Bigger back, like 6'1", 220. Kind of a fun player. Played in over the last 3 weeks, has played in about 30% of the snaps or so, which is cool to see. He had 9 touches in week 3. He had 6 catches in week 4. Like, that type of production, man, is like, 6 for 43 and a touchdown is PPR deeper league start worthy type of player. So in case he's not rostered, go out and grab Xavier Scott because both Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones are on the IR. Into the wide receivers here. Oh, no, we got one more running back for you. Amar Johnson for your Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously we have the Najee injury, right? So you're and the Hampton injury. So you're down to Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins. Amar Johnson is also on this team. Amar Johnson kind of had a lot of hype in Green Bay. Green Bay just had kind of a crowded running back room with Marshawn Lloyd, Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks. But Amar Johnson kind of got a lot of hype. Some people were even comparing him to Aaron Jones. So he played at South Dakota State, so a smaller school. He's a smaller running back in general. He's not small, but he's like right around 200 or so. Put up pretty good numbers in college as kind of like he had over 1,200 yards rushing last year in college and 30 catches. So very productive in college. Just keep an eye on him. If something were to happen to Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins, Chargers probably trade for someone, but maybe Amar Johnson gets in there, and he's a young guy, so there's some potential for something there. Into the wide receivers, once again, we have Chris Moore. If you need a starter this week, Chris Moore might be worth starting. With Debo and Terry McLaurin potentially both out, Chris Moore might be the player. Now, Chris Moore's been in the NFL for a while, but last few weeks he's played 70, 59.3, 67.7% of the snaps. Literally about 65-ish or so percent of the snaps over the last 3 weeks. Had a good game in week 6. Last time we saw the Commanders, 3 catches, 5 targets, 46 yards, and a touchdown. And he's playing an incredible matchup in the Dallas Cowboys. So, if he's kind of their, him and Luke McCaffrey as their wide receiver 1 and 2, we could be seeing another game in deeper leagues where Chris Moore kind of gives you 10 PPR points, which is kind of all the, what you'd be ecstatic if you got that if you're starting Chris Moore at this point. Bo Collins for your New York Football Giants. Rookie Bo Collins was a undrafted guy out of Notre Dame. Other guy who was he had some production 4 years in college, but nothing big. Played 3 years at Clemson, 1 at Notre Dame. He's a taller guy, 6'3", 206. And so Bo Collins, there's some intrigue here, just a younger player. Obviously, the Giants and their depth chart, you got guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, and stuff like that. But Malik Nabers is hurt. Darius Slayton might be hurt. So Bo Collins might be seeing a little bit of playing time here. So again, always some intrigue when you get these young guys we don't really know much about, and maybe they ball out and everyone's going to be jumping on them. They have one game, guys. Bo Collins, because he's a rookie, he has one game where he goes 5 for 60 and a touchdown. Not even a huge game. Everyone in Dynasty in deeper leagues is going to be picking him up. So why not get ahead of it? Casey Washington, he's my guy. I think he's kind of rostered in a lot of leagues, but if he's not, he's playing quite a lot for the Falcons, especially when Darnell Mooney's out. Casey Washington plays 90% of the snaps. Even with Darnell Mooney there last week, right? Darnell Mooney did play last week, or was he out? Anyways, Casey Washington over the last 3 weeks, 94.7, 52.3, and 80% of the snaps in week 1, 4, and 6. If Darnell Mooney's out, Casey Washington plays a lot. And so, if Mooney's out again, you could be getting a guy who's going to be playing 80, 90% of the snaps. He could catch a touchdown or two. Who knows? Just like Tyrell Shavers, who is on the Buffalo Bills. Bills have some injuries as well at the wide receiver position. Bills need wide receivers in general, but they lost Josh Palmer for some time. I'm not sure if he's going to go to IR or not. Dalton Kincaid is missing time. Curtis Samuel missed time. So you're down to Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Elijah Moore, and Tyrell Shavers. So Shavers, we saw kind of get into the game. I think he had a deep shot target. He had 5 targets against the Falcons, had a deep shot, at least one deep shot target. Caught 3 of those passes, played 50% of the snaps. So he got a big bump. He was playing right around 20 to 30% of the snaps, played almost 50 in this last game. So he got a pretty big bump. Attach yourself to a good quarterback. Tyrell Shavers could be playing a lot over the next week if Palmer and Curtis Samuel are both out, and Dalton Kincaid. Another guy who I think is rostered on a lot of teams, but in case he's not, Xavier Hutchinson is the wide receiver 3 for the Houston Texans. He's playing over Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel every week, every game this season. 4 of the 5 games this season, he's played in 60% or more of the snaps, is averaging 65% of the snaps, caught 2 touchdowns last week. Again, a guy that's playing this much in deeper leagues is worth a dart throw. it is worth a dart throw. Attach yourself to what we think are good quarterbacks in CJ Stroud. Mitchell Tinsley for your Cincinnati Bengals. Mitchell Tinsley is a 26-year-old. He's been in the NFL for a few years now, but hasn't really recorded anything. He had 2 games played back in 2023, and then this is his first first time he's caught a pass in the NFL, I think was just this last week. But Mitchell Tinsley is kind of like the de facto wide receiver 4 for this team. Jermaine Burton is out. Charlie Jones is more of a punt returner, special teams guy. So if something were to happen to, let's just say, Yoshi Voss, we could be seeing Mitchell Tinsley getting in on the field a little bit more. I think they kind of play a similar role. And you look at Yoshi Voss, and every few games he has a game. 5 for 80, 3 for 50. He'll catch an occasional touchdown. So just wanted to throw his name out there. Mitchell Tinsley, could be kind of a handcuff to this wide receiver Bengals wide receiver room. Konata Mumpfield, we talked a lot about him in the offseason. A lot of people stashed him. He was getting some hype in the offseason, rookie mini camps, training camp, and stuff like that. Anytime there's going to be, a late round pick by the Rams, people are going to take a shot on him. Mumpfield could be seeing more playing time here potentially. I think it's mostly going to go to Jordan Whittington, but no Puka Nacua, potentially no Tutu Atwell. Do we see more of like Konata Mumpfield? Maybe, probably not, but still a decent guy to stash and just see what happens. And we finish off with 4 tight ends here. Julian Hill. I literally talk about this guy whenever I make these videos, waiver wires, whatever it is. Julian Hill for the Miami Dolphins plays a lot. He is playing about 60% of the snaps to start the year. Last 3 games, he's closer to 65% of the snaps. Gets targets. He has 10 targets in the last 3 games, so a little over 3 targets a game. 8 catches in the last 3 games. So, he's getting catches and stuff like that. If something were to happen to Waller, who's a little bit older, maybe Julian Hill takes on a bit of an expanded role. I'm not sure. We'll see. But, this team needs pass catchers. I think Julian Hill is an athletic guy who could maybe catch some passes. We'll see. Hunter Long, probably late on this one. He's the tight end 1 for the Jags, though. Not really much else to say here. I don't think he's just going to replace Brenton Strange's production, but Brenton Strange is, I think, on the IR. So Hunter Long's the tight end 1. Johnny Munt is also there if you want to take a shot on him. Jackson Haas is probably more of a blocking tight end, but Kincaid is injured, missed last week. Jackson Haas has been getting on the field, even with Kincaid and Dawson Knox there. He's played in about 40% of the snaps this year, has 4 of his 6 games over 40% of snaps. So, again, I think he's more of a blocking guy, but who knows what he can develop into. If they really like his versatility, do they try and get him involved a little bit more in the passing game as well? And then Elijah Higgins. This is basically a Trey McBride handcuff. Elijah Higgins. I think Elijah Higgins is a pretty talented receiving tight end if he were to get that opportunity. In college, his last 2 years in college, 45 for 504, 59 for 704 and 2. Those are really good receiving numbers in college. Now, that doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL, but he was a 6th-round pick. He's been on the Cardinals the last couple of years. He actually plays a decent amount, 30% of the snaps or so on average. Last week played in over 45% of the snaps. If something were to happen to Trey McBride, we could be seeing Elijah Higgins actually being kind of a streamable tight end. So appreciate it, everyone. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, join our Discord, and we'll see you guys all in the next video.